Hi, Janiece.
Hey, Valeria, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well. It's a beautiful morning.
It is. It's a really nice day today.
Yes.
For those of you who don't know me, my name is Valeria Contreras, and I am the Advocacy Director at A Plus Colorado. And with us is Janiece Mackey, and I'll let her introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Janiece Mackey. I'm the co founder and executive director of Young Aspiring Americans for Social and Political Activism, or YAASPA for short, which is celebrating its 10-year anniversary this year. We offer student services from classes, youth councils, hopefully our summer program, which is the Social Sciences and Policy Institute, but not sure about that, and much more.
Great. Thank you. I did not know there was a 10-year anniversary. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
So first question that we have is, how did your organization shift after the quarantine was announced?
Yes. So the first thing I want to say about this question is that we actually first chose to engage in our pre-existing ethos, pushing against the status quo and centering our work through the lens of red pedagogy, which interrogates the inconsistencies between the world as it is and as it should be. And that citation is Alfred, 1999, 132, just in case folks want to look that up. Um, we also saw this public health shift as an opportunity to move closer toward an actualization of how to change the way education looks, feels, and sounds for students, right? But not only for students, but for folks who actually engage with students as well. Um, Second, this is gonna sound interesting probably to folks, but we chose not to perform for others' consumption. So straight up, we got honestly right a lot of calls, a lot of check-ins from folks, basically saying like, "Oh, what is YASPA gonna do, and what are you gonna do now?" Right? So rather than engaging in sort of this disposition of panic and shifting to like performative ways of being, we decided we weren't going to perform for other folks' consumption, and we were just going to continue along with things the way we already had been, which is to honor the dignity and humanity of students, right? And also the folks that we work with. So we really kind of almost isolated a little bit and just really focused on the YASPA village in order to ensure that folks were getting what they need, whether it was space to simply exist or whether it was more check-ins than usual. So that was super, super important to me, that we honor our folks in that way. What I also want to say is that we did engage in some community things, right, for our students, from like a village work survey to civic blenders and whatnot, which I can talk about later because I know that question's coming up. But I feel like that's kind of the gist for that first question.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Next question is, what are some challenges that your students are currently facing with schools closing?
Mm. So first, I'll start with the schooling perspective. From a schooling perspective, there's basic needs, from like technology, having to share technology. I'm a parent as well of three girls, and they were sharing technology initially, which is actually extremely challenging. And we know, right, that even though you can access like Google Classroom or what have you on your phone or your tablet, that is not ideal for learning, right? So that has been a basic challenge that our students are facing with regards to the schooling shift. Also, it's overwhelming from a schooling perspective for students, right? So there's kind of this spectrum of educators, right? From those who are like, oh, let me show you some new tricks, right? With regards to learning. Please download this app and download that, with 80 emails, to educators on the other side of the spectrum who are like, I'm going to post something, it's due in 3 weeks, see you later, right? And so it's been difficult for students to navigate that shift because some of these educators, right, are folks that they were used to seeing every day or folks they were used to seeing at least a couple times a week. And so seeing even and feeling the responses of educators in varying ways has been challenging for students, and they're not quite sure how to interpret that. I do want to highlight again the fact that it's a lot of screen time as well. My 10-year-old was like my inbox went from like 12 to like 100 emails and now I'm screen sick. That's her language, mind you, right? And so like just honoring that, and the fact that parents are having to navigate that alongside students, and how do we honor our students' no's as it pertains to virtual learning, and knowing that their learning can happen in other humanizing experiential ways outside of a screen. um, it's tough to navigate that. Um, so kind of outside of the whole schooling spectrum too is like honoring different ways of knowing and different learning styles. So we already knew there was a ton of different learning styles anyway, right, in holding space physically with students. But what are ways that's being accounted for in a virtual space? Can it be accounted for in a virtual space, right? And if it is accounted for, right, kind of on that other end of the spectrum of like, download this, download that, and try this out, is that overwhelming to students? We're hearing yes. Now's not the time necessarily that they want to try all the tricks, right? So that's been difficult and challenging for students as well. Now for more of like kind of a social, emotional, like spiritual perspective, what's been difficult, of course, is we have a lot of students who really enjoy the social aspect of schooling. So everything from graduation to yearbook to dances. It's spring, having lunch with friends outside, these basic things that really keep students in school, that folks can sometimes be dismissive of. Students are no longer getting to experience. Also, the language of social distancing, I would argue, is pretty harmful. So I choose not to use that language, right? Physical distancing is one thing, but it's extremely important to stay socially connected, right? And then also, I think this is a time for us to really interrogate, again, as I said earlier, those inconsistencies that we're experiencing and knowing that school can't solve all problems. There's students who are navigating babysitting while trying to do online school and caring for loved ones, right? Trying to figure out work, maybe taking care of their own children if they're teen parents while trying to navigate the shift, housing, rent. We've had students ask for food, transportation, emergency housing. So knowing that all of those things are still happening and occurring simultaneously while navigating virtual schooling.
Yeah, for sure. It's a lot to navigate during these times. And you've touched on it briefly, but would you mind sharing more about like how you have been able, or YAASPA has been able to support students during this time?
Yeah, so first and foremost, we offer space for students virtually, right, through like Zoom and Hangouts as an opt-in space, right? So definitely not mandatory, but we want students to know like, hey, we're here. If you want to see someone's face, like, let's hop on Zoom so we can at least see each other in that way. We also have made sure to continue paying our high school and our college interns during this time as well. We think it's super important to honor their labor in this time, and just the emotional labor it takes to exist during this time and navigating this public health shift as well. We also have a village support form that we put out for our YAASPA village, and it's been really important for us to meet the needs of students and shift in that way too, from helping with rent money to food to housing resources, job resources, mental health resources, physical health resources, all of these different things in order to ensure that students' basic needs are being met and honoring their dignity first in that. Something that I thought was extremely important that actually one of our students pointed out with our village support form is allowing for folks to fill it out on behalf of a family member. One of our students was indicating, right, that folks have a lot of pride, right? Understandably so, with regards to asking for help and not necessarily wanting to put themselves out there like that. And so she was like, can folks fill it out for other people? I'm like, absolutely. And so we actually mentioned that at the top of the form to make sure folks know that they don't have to be filling it out for themselves, that somebody else can fill it out for them if that's too much. And that's opened up more doors and opened up more opportunities to connect with students for us to meet them where they're at too. I also want to indicate too that it's been extremely important to us to actually be in real quote unquote solidarity with students and families, right? By signing on to varying petitions that are out there. So for instance, CU Denver students put out a petition to really push on the university to go to more pass-fail, right, and follow the lead of CU Boulder. So we signed on to that and have shared that on our website. We also signed on to the petition put out there by the Common Good Collective to put a moratorium on rent and to honor the lives, right, of folks who are detained via ICE, as well as folks who are incarcerated as well, in allowing them to engage in the distancing practices that we've been asked to engage in and have the privilege to engage in, right? So I also want to just capture that as well, that it's important, I think, to, yes, meet the needs, but also at the same time, also honoring the dignity of students and families experiencing these things in these places where incarceration is happening, and being in solidarity to push on these systems, right, that allow that to happen in the first place. Also honoring that students want to continue to engage in learning, right? They have a right to choose if they want to do that. So we're doing what's called like civic blenders through our like Google Classroom Spaces, and honoring students and meeting their needs for their civic health of their own families, but also the broader ecosystem as well. An example of that too is we put out a Good Vibes campaign for our elders. So we're sending good vibes in the mail. And we sent our first one last week, and the elder got it and was just super blessed by it. And so just even those small things, right, that students are excited to participate in order to contribute to our broader ecosystem of civic health.
Yeah, all of that sounds amazing. Janiece, are there any student stories right now that you would like to highlight?
Oh, this question's always so hard because there's so many students. So I was like making a list, and then we jumped on the call, and I was like, oh, I'm not done. I first want to bring in a space Chelsea, who's one of our college interns who is a senior at UCD. And so just honoring the fact that like she's put in so much work and is a senior and is wanting her graduation, right? And is an ethnic studies and public health major, and has been with YAASPA for about a year and a half or so, and has been holding space with our high school interns as well in super dope ways. Keely, who's our CCA Aurora Gift Scholar, this is her first year of college, and she's studying political science and is having to navigate her first year of college and this huge shift, right? So just bringing her in the space. We have other seniors too who are high school interns, like Ariana and Jordan, who are seniors at Vista Peak, Giselle, who's a senior at Gateway, Juliet, Leilani, who are seniors at Aurora West. I could go on, but I'll stop there, but it's hard. It's always hard to just narrow it down because there's just so many amazing students. And through this question, I tried to really focus and hone in on seniors.
Yeah, thank you for that. I know you want to acknowledge everybody, but there's like a time limit. Um, how are you working with your school partners to continue to serve kids, and what supports have they needed?
This question, I grappled with this question, honestly, because I could answer like, oh, we're doing this, this, and this, right? But what I first want to acknowledge is just the fact that we're a small community organization, right, who's navigating this. And so as a learning education provider that provides classes for middle school and high school students, we knew, right, like we would continue to do that and hold space with students. But as we reached out to our fellow school partners who are great, right, they honestly didn't know what to do either with this shift. And so as an executive director, reaching out to them and saying like, hey, you know, YAASPA's still here. We're here to support you and our students. Please let us know how you'd like us to jump in. There was kind of this initial reaction of like, thanks, but we're kind of not ready for you yet, right? Which I honor that, right? Because there has to be this level of grace in knowing that this has been a huge shift for everyone, including big systems like school systems. But think of that, and then think about a smaller community organization, right? And having to not necessarily make that quote unquote shift, right? but kind of jump into the ways in which they are creating a shift as school partners, right? So we have some school partners who began last week in wanting us to hold space, to school partners who are like, I think we're going to start this week, right? And honoring that as okay. So we have Google Classrooms for our students. We have Google Hangouts and Zoom opportunities for our students. Not so much as like office hours, but just like hours to connect and opportunities to connect. We're really trying to ensure that it's a teaching and learning space that, again, honors the humanity and dignity of students and their civic, emotional, mental, and spiritual health. So what can we be putting out there as content that like honors them in that way, right? Instead of just going back to the status quo of teaching and learning. A lot of our pedagogy was already centered and grounded in like racial identity and class and gender and those type of things. So continuing in that lens, but in ways that honor them and isn't too overloading at this time, right, has been super important. So we've done that. We're also doing civic blenders. We're having our first one today, which I'm really excited about. With Chalkbeat, it's going to be about teachers of color. And so we're excited to have that conversation as well. So those are, yeah, some of the different ways that we are trying to still be a good community partner with our schools. And to the second part, you asked like, what are schools kind of indicating they need, right? One is just to continue to hold space. That's been important, and we've appreciated that because I feel like they're seeing the value of our work now as well. In this shift, right, of the need to really honor students and meet them where they're at mentally and emotionally and civically. But then also like filling in more of those gaps around like things outside of food, right? Again, schools aren't the end all be all for this stuff, right? There's a lot of socio-political context that folks have to take into consideration. And so we've been able to come alongside and fill in some of those gaps. Like I said, from helping with rent to housing, transportation, food, emergency housing assistance, whatever students need, and being able to kind of help fill that gap, I think has been critical as well.
Yeah, thank you so much, Janiece, for sharing your truth, like, as always. Um, Final question is, what support does your organization need right now, like during this moment, at this time, with everything going on?
Thank you for that question. Um, I appreciate that. What I would say first is allowing us to just exist and be, and not expecting us to perform for others. Like knowing and honoring that we were already doing good work with students and will continue to do so. So a way of doing that is donating, of course, right? Because we have had to shift funds in ways that honor students where they're at. Like I literally am going to go get food today for a student, right? We have helped students with rent. And so having to shift our budget around, rightfully so, right, in order to honor the needs of students is something that we didn't necessarily prepare for. And so folks donating is definitely helpful. Not expecting us to perform differently is helpful, right? Also participating in our Good Vibes campaign, which I'm really excited about. It's, I think even sometimes just the small things that go a really long way. You don't have to be an artist to participate. It could be a poem, it could be a message, it could be a quote. Whatever is feeding your soul right now, just giving us an opportunity to send that out as good vibes in the mail to our elders. It really means a lot to them, especially for folks who were already experiencing anxiety in this time. Prior to this time, right, getting something in the mail to basically feel like, hey, somebody sees me, right? Somebody notices me, I think is extremely important in this time of distancing ourselves. And then also like really being in true solidarity by putting your bodies on the line, right, and signing on to the petitions that our students have wanted us to sign on to. So that CU Denver petition, as well as the moratorium on rent petition, and also centering the lives of those who have been affected by ICE and detained as well.
Thank you so much for your time, your voice, your presence, and your leadership and everything, Janiece. Thank you for making the time for this and to answer our questions. As Janiece mentioned, there are some petitions going around that are on her website, and if you are able to and want to donate or support or learn more about YAASPA, please visit yaaspa.org. Again, Janiece, thank you so much for everything.
Oh, thank you as well, Valeria. I super appreciate you.
Thank you. I hope you have a good rest of your week.
You too. You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.